Hi, this is Joe from Vanta. In today's digital world, compliance regulations are changing constantly, and earning customer trust has never mattered more. Vanta helps companies get compliant fast and stay secure with the most advanced AI, automation, and continuous monitoring out there. So whether you're a startup going for your first SOC 2 or ISO 27001, or a growing enterprise managing vendor risk, Vanta makes it quick, easy, and scalable. And I'm not just saying that because I work here. Get started at Vanta.com.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
Entertaining and informative
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Jesse is the Vice Chair of the New York State Party and the County Chair of the Suffolk Party. With us is our esteemed colleague, co-host, Eric Levine, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. So, gentlemen, the last time we had the occasion to chat amongst ourselves, we were talking about what was Israel going to do, what was the United States going to do. Now we know what they did. They launched a preventive, they call it preemptive, but it's a preventive strike against Iran to protect Israel from extermination against the threat, which is an existential threat. They did the right thing. As I've been saying all week long since this broke, it's about time that this happened. You cannot trust the Iranians other than to abide by their doctrines, both religious doctrines and political doctrines, which is the extermination of the state of Israel, the extermination of the United States of America. Now we're confronted with a problem. They've done good work. It's been a week. They've done very good work in taking out military leaders, intelligence leaders, scientists, senior members of the political class around the Ayatollah. But, and this is the big but, what happens next? There's one big reactor left which they need to, or nuclear site they need to take out. They may very well need the so-called 30,000-pound bunker bombs. Bunker buster, that's correct. If they need it, and the only people who have it is the United States of America, and the only way you get them over there is by B-2s, and we're the only ones who have those B-2s. Are they going to loan them to them? Are they going to give it to them? Are they going to make the attack themselves? These are the questions that are confronted. Then you have the question of what do you do about the Ayatollah and the clerical class that have been the dictators of that country for years now, since 1978, 79. What are you going to do about that? Are you going to let them stay in place? Because if you let them stay in place, they'll be back at us. That is Western civilization. Their goal is to impose their version of Sharia law on the whole world. The texts say it in terms of, and I mean the religious texts and the political texts tell you that. When people tell you they want to dominate you and people tell you they want to kill you, what do? So as Eric and I were walking in the studio just now there's noise that Trump says, I'll figure out in the next couple of weeks what he's going to do. And Eric and I looked at each other and we said, why are you giving another 2 weeks? All they do is waste time, build themselves up. They waste our time, not their time. They build up their military defenses. They build up their missile capacity. This is serious business. They engage in terrorism. They can plot and scheme. They always waste time. Enough dithering. If you're going to fight a war, you fight to win. You have to take these people out. If you allow that class in power to stay in power, they will come back at you again and again and again. Eric.
Well, let me start with the point or the question you were asking, whether or not, as relates to the bunker busters and the B-2, whether or not we should give it to the Israelis or whether we should do it. The answer is very clear. We have to do it. We have to do it. And if for no other reason than this, if we don't do it, China is going to be convinced that the United States will not defend Taiwan. They'll adopt keep in mind what we do with the Houthis. We told the Houthis, if you stop shooting at Americans, we'll stop shooting at you, and they let them continue to shoot the Israelis. If we don't do it, the Chinese will become convinced that if we invade Taiwan but don't attack any American service members, we get a free pass. So for that reason alone, the United States must be the ones to put the B-2s in the air and drop the bunker busters and make it very clear that we did it. For that reason alone. But there are multiple other reasons why it's necessary for us to get into the war and to get into the war now. It's been too late as it already is. We got to take out Fodor. That is the big nuclear facility half a mile underground that the Israelis can't reach with their current weapons. They may have other ways to get there and other means to destroy it, but clearly the bunker busters are the best way to do this. But I want to address 4 misconceptions that have been percolating out there by an anti-Israel media, an anti-Israel radical progressive left, and an anti-Israel neo-isolationist woke right. The first is that this is Israel's war. This is only Israel's war. That's nonsense. Let's look at the history. Since 1979, Iran has been at war with us, since the beginning of this regime. The first thing they did was take over 60 American hostages and hold them for 444 days. That's an act of war. Then, during the Reagan administration, they blew up 241 Marines in the Marine barracks in Beirut. We did nothing. They blew up Americans in the Khobar Towers in Saudi Arabia. We did nothing. They're responsible for 1/3 of the dead and wounded in Iraq, American dead and wounded in Iraq and Afghanistan. They haven't paid a price. The closest they've come was when Donald Trump killed Qasem Soleimani. God bless him. That was a great day. He deserved everything he got. But the Iranians have been developing a nuclear weapon, and that nuclear weapon is not designed just to reach Israel. It's designed to reach Europe, and it's designed to reach the United States. And how do we know that? Because they have been advancing their ballistic missile system in a way so that it can reach here. The only reason to have a ballistic missile system is to put a nuclear warhead on it. And the only reason to have a ballistic missile system that can travel thousands of miles is so it can hit New York or Miami or Chicago or D.C. or L.A. That's what the North Koreans are trying to do. That's the reason that so their development of the ballistic missile system is an existential threat, not just to Israel, but to the United States. And Richard, you've made this point on the show multiple times, and it's 100% right. When these people take to the streets and start chanting death to America, death to Israel, damn it, we got to start listening to that. When Nazis say they're going to kill people, Nazis mean it. And these people are Nazis. So we got to get into the war. We have to do it now. What's the second misconception? The second misconception is you hear all this garbage. Oh, if we attack Iran, we'll start a war. No. We're at war. We've been at war since 1979. We've just chosen to not defend ourselves. This doesn't start the war. This ends the war. This helps bring down the regime. And even if it doesn't bring down the regime, it certainly puts their nuclear program and then their ballistic missile system program and their terrorist network back decades. It ends the war. It doesn't start the war. And this notion that thousands of Americans are going to die. What are you talking about? The comparison to Iraq is obscene. No one's talking about putting any boots on the ground. It does not require a single American boot on the ground. These are lies being told by people that don't want Jews to defend themselves, that don't really care if Nazis get a nuclear weapon. It's to hold back the United States from helping to defend itself and defend Israel. The neo-isolationists, this notion that you can kind of put up a wall and the rest of the world doesn't exist, is fantasy land. And on the radical progressive left, if Jews die, maybe we'll be upset, maybe we won't be upset, whatever, but under no circumstances may Jews defend themselves.
They'll send flowers.
Perhaps. Depends how costly, but you never know. So this lie that it's going to start a war is nonsense. That's a comparison to Iraq is garbage. There's absolutely no comparison whatsoever. This third misconception: if we kill the Ayatollah, we're creating a martyr. Nonsense. You decapitate the regime. That's how the regime completely falls apart. Multiple examples of that. When they took out Nasrallah, who's the head of Hezbollah in Beirut, everyone thought they'd make Nasrallah a martyr and it'll just further empower Hezbollah. Well, Hezbollah has been completely neutered, literally and figuratively. Hezbollah is the creation of Iran. It is an extension of Iran, and yet we hear nothing of it during this war between Israel and Iran. Why? Because it has been so decimated, so decapitated. Even the weak Lebanese army can now exert control within Lebanon and control the Iranians and control Hezbollah. So this notion that if you kill the Ayatollah, you make him a martyr, makes it more dangerous is nonsense. Another perfect example, in 1982, when the Israelis were in Beirut, an Israeli sniper literally, there are pictures of it, had Yasser Arafat in the crosshairs of a sniper's weapon. And Begin made the mistake of telling Reagan he was going to kill him. And Reagan said no. So Begin called off the shooting. And then they were ultimately sent, the PLO surrendered and went out to Tunisia. This is what peace gets you. Arafat survived, and eventually we got Oslo. And how many thousands of Israelis or people around in the Middle East died because Yasser Arafat survived? Had they killed Arafat, it would have decapitated the PLO. It would have been in complete disarray. Don't make the same mistake. Kill the Ayatollah. If you have the shot, take it. And then there's the obscenity of the media. The final misconception there are many more, but of the four I want to talk about today. So this morning, either the last night or this morning, depending upon where you are on the globe, the Iranians had a direct hit on the Soroka Medical Center in Beersheba. That's in the Negev in the southern part of Israel. That is a war crime. That's a war crime. Have you heard CNN, the New York Times, the Washington Post, CBS, ABC, NBC, anybody calling it a war crime? No, their reaction is, you see, you shouldn't have attacked, this is what you get, or silence. It's a war crime. It is a civilian site without any military presence, and it's a war crime. But when the Israelis attack a hospital in Gaza because Hamas has put its munitions there, has its headquarters there, is launching attacks from there, and is under international law a legitimate military target, the Israelis are accused of war crimes. They can't help themselves. Remember a famous New York Times article minutes after the Israelis attacked a hospital in Gaza, accusing the Israelis of war crimes. They eventually had to admit that, there was a Hamas headquarters there, operating and attacking Israel from there. But the difference in the treatment, the lies that are being told about Israel are now being exposed. Where is that same media condemning the Iranian attack on the Israeli hospital? It's nowhere to be found. But let's not lose sight, folks. These attacks, this propaganda, this garbage isn't just coming from the radical progressive left. It's coming from the Tucker Carlsons of the world on the right. And they both need to be condemned. But the majority of the American people who are in the center, who are open-minded, who are fair-minded, who understand, who generally support Israel, need to understand they're being lied to. And that the United States needs to stand with Israel. It's in America's national interest to stand with Israel, and it's in America's national interest to get involved in this war and take out these nuclear facilities and bring down this regime.
Jesse, your thoughts?
Thank you. Eric, I think accurately addressed all those misconceptions. And just to build on the hypocrisy of the mass media, which is a component of basically whitewashing and being an advocate for Iran and those that want to bring terror to our nation. Let's not forget that Israel, before they move forward, especially in the most latest examples in Iran, and they're going after military assets that are near or around civilian communities. They are texting. They are bombarding the phones and giving warnings before that goes forward. And I think that should be noted as they move forward.
Good point. Really good point.
The other thing I would like to just point out is on the use of the bunker buster bomb. Number one, it has to be the United States that does that. First and foremost, the B-2 is not, I don't believe, is an asset that is sold across even to allies, and neither is that weapon. So just by form and by rule, it's going to have to be the United States that utilizes that weapon so that technology is not in the hands of an ally or anyone else, or falls after it maybe from that point. But as we go forward, we are involved in this war. We both aptly put it out. Since 1979, and the attack upon our embassy, we have been at war here. And in this war directly, in the direct Israeli-Iran attacks to remove these nuclear capabilities, the United States has been involved. And maybe to the degree we can be debated, but in cases like this, I tend to quote Bibi Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel. He has said it has been the United States assets, military assets, that have been helping the defense of Israel in in fending off the bombardments of ballistic missiles from Iran. And in that case, it has allowed Israel to basically attack and disable the infrastructure of the nuclear capabilities of Iran. They've eliminated the anti-aircraft capabilities of Iran. They have air superiority over Tehran, and so on and so forth. But the one thing I think we should point out here is, except for Thursday, when I think President Trump mentioned something about 2 weeks, one thing that I always grasp about Donald Trump is that while we were pressing and everyone was pressing for this to move forward and Israel to be allowed to attack Iran, I believe I'm confident that there is a purpose for that matter. And what I want to touch upon before we get our guest here, and we have to do a hard break, is the outstanding work that was done by the IDF, the Mossad, or just the Israeli government in preparing for this attack upon making sure we disable and obliterate the nuclear capabilities of Iran. And that is by placing military assets, I believe there were drones, inside Iran that were used to take out these nuclear facilities and to lead to the successes over the last week of this campaign.
Some of them were put there years ago. Years ago, we talked about the planning.
I don't disagree with you on that, but I also think that timing is everything, and whether in campaigns. If you also see the movement, slowly or whatever, or deliberately, as a message or in preparation of the United States military assets in the region, whether it be aircraft carriers and its naval forces and its air wings. So I think that while for many weeks we were saying to the administration, take the gloves off of Israel, let them do what they need to do, I am confident that this is being done in conjunction with Israel and their preparations of their attacks last Thursday. In fact, there was rumors, and Prime Minister Netanyahu was classic, and he demonstrated why he's an outstanding diplomat. He is an outstanding leader of his people, and he's a great ally of the United States. There were reports out that the United States, that Donald Trump was speaking about the summits and the peace talks and reaching a deal so that Israel could prepare and that they could launch their attack. I do believe, and he very, very, very effectively said, I'm not going to basically discuss my private conversations with the president, but the United States continues and will always be, under President Trump, an ally of Israel. So I do think that we are involved here. I believe that we have to leave this to the two leaders, Bibi Netanyahu and as well Donald Trump, as they promulgate this war in Iran.
Thanks, Jesse. We're going to take a break. In a few moments, we'll be back. Please stay tuned for more interesting conversation. This is Let the Record Show with Chairman Garcia of the Republican Party, noted attorney, commentator, essayist Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Please stay tuned. We'll be back in a moment.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Between two-factor authentication, strong passwords, and a VPN, you try to be in control of how your info is protected. But many other places also have it, and they might not be as careful. That's why LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast for 40% off. Terms apply.
Parents of tweens, if you're familiar with far-off drop-offs...
Dad, stop, right here.
Or get DMs about what's for dinner, you may be experiencing tween milestones. For your son or daughter, these can start at age 9. HPV vaccination, a type of cancer prevention against certain HPV-related cancers, can start then too.
For most, HPV clears on its own. But for those who don't clear the virus, it can cause certain cancers later in life.
Embrace this phase. Help protect them in the next.
Ask their doctor today about HPV vaccination. Brought to you by Merck.
Choice Hotels get you more for your money so you can maximize any road trip. And as your vacation maximizationer, I'm going to make sure you hear the maximum sizzle of Comfort Inn's free hot breakfast. Let's get real close. Maximum apple. Now that's fresh crispimization. Maximum waffle. Hear that crunch. And that's maximum coffee. Oh yeah, that's the pour I'm talking about. Breakfast maximized before hitting the road. Check into more. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Business. How can you free up your team from time-consuming office tasks? Amazon Business empowers leaders to not only streamline purchasing, but better support their teams so they can focus on strategy and growth. Free up your teams and focus on your future. Learn more about the technology, insights, and support available at amazonbusiness.com.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg, and rejoining us for at least the second time, maybe the third time, is our very good friend.
Never enough.
Never enough. Jason Miyares, the Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Virginia, a great public servant. He was a great legislator in the legislature in Virginia, then became Attorney General. A wonderful man. I first met him when he was starting this group going after the anti-law enforcement types.
Pro-anti.
They're pro-anti.
They're in favor of being anti-cop.
They are. Defund, anti. And he founded this wonderful group, which he's led for years, and he put it together with other distinguished members of attorneys general and state prosecutors and local prosecutors. And so Jason has been a good friend for years now and one of my heroes. And with that introduction, Mr. Attorney General, I turn you over to our mutual friend, Eric Levine.
Well, Jason, great to have you.
Great to be with you guys.
And it's great to have you.
Good to hear your voice, Eric. Great to be with you.
Yeah, same here. To our listeners, you heard it here first. Keep your eye on Jason. This man is a rising star in the Republican Party. He has a real future.
That's right. Jason for president.
Hey, amen. Amen. Anyway, so I want to start with L.A. and what's going on out there with the riots and Trump's decision to federalize the National Guard and to bring out the Marines and Governor Newsom's response to that. My general takeaway is that President Trump was absolutely right in federalizing the National Guard, bringing peace to the streets of L.A., but I had serious questions as to whether or not bringing out the Marines was the right view. But at the end of the day, bringing down the insurrection, ending the riots had to happen. So, what's your take on all that?
Well, there is no question that right now what had happened in LA had gotten out of control, right? I do remind people that President George H.W. Bush actually called out 1,500 Marines during the LA riots in 1992. President Trump called out about 700 Marines. The reality is that he called them out actually to protect federal installations, which he is allowed under his federal authority. But much more than that, what you had, which we have seen, it seems recently in America, is once you have a spirit of lawlessness and permissiveness, it can quickly get out of control as well. And I think the number one goal I think you have in public, if you're a public official, is the safety of your citizens. And when the LAPD police chief was saying that his forces are being overwhelmed, and those videos that were popping in online, notice they were not rocks or anything thrown at the Marines. They were being thrown at LA Police Department members. And the reality is, of course, we support peaceful protests in our country. That's our First Amendment right. It's a sacred one. You have seen entities like out in LA, there's a group called the Party for Socialism and Liberation, or PSL. Sounds like a real group we all want to hang out with on a Friday night, right? But the Party for Socialism and Liberation.
They're great drinkers.
Yeah, but you'd have to pay for the drinks. Okay.
Right. Well, they're Marxists, right? So they want everybody else to pay for it but themselves. But PSL has received a large amount of funding from outside sources, and they absolutely are both organized. And their goal is, what I would argue, their end goal is not peaceful protest, it's chaos. And you have seen a lot of these type of entities that have emerged. We saw it in Virginia after the October 7th tragedy on some of our college campuses. There's absolutely, in my opinion, a level of outside influencers that come in, not just to organize, but oftentimes to commit chaos. And we've seen that firsthand in Virginia. And so I know our attitude in Virginia was we weren't going to allow what happened in Columbia to happen in Virginia. But in my opinion, the first job is to protect your citizens. If that means having to federalize the National Guard, then that's absolutely allowed under the law. And, what I would say to the members of Congress who don't like about it, well, then change the law. But that law is on the books.
So we frequently hear about these outside influences and outside funding, but we never, or I shouldn't say never, we rarely hear who these people or groups are by name that are these agitators and are these funders. Do you have, is there kind of a list? Do we know who these people are specifically?
Well, I'll give you an example. On PSL, this Marxist group, first of all, it's been linked to Elias Rodriguez, the evil man who shot those two innocent Israeli embassy employees, right? So PSL, they go where the chaos. So one second they're protesting, quote unquote, on behalf of the Palestinians, and 1 second they're protesting against federal immigration law, right? But PSL, one of their largest funders, is a guy named Neville Singham. He sold his tech company for about almost $750 million. There's been numerous, quote unquote, allegations of money from foreign sources that have flowed into entities like PSL. Neville Singham's wife is Jody Evans, who also runs Code Pink, which y'all are probably familiar with some of them. And they went from being an anti-Iraq war protest group to now an anti-Israel protest group as well. So you've seen this as well. I personally think one of the most underreported stories by the legacy media in America today has been the amount of outside foreign money that is funded, not just outside groups, but we've also seen and heard a lot of entities being funded lawsuits, right? There is a lot of quote unquote allegations that some of the Gulf states have funded some of the either anti-fracking litigation or anti-natural gas litigation as well. Because at the end of the day, there is this sense, and this is my personal theory, there are some of these individuals, these neo-Marxist groups, they actually don't view America as a force for good. Their worldview is America is actually a force for bad, that we are not that last best hope on earth, that they refer, and you could see it in some of their signs they hold up at these rallies. They refer to us as, the American empire, right, that needs to be smashed and destroyed. That is very, very different, I think, from my perspective, as a child of a family that actually fled tyranny in Cuba and came here. And I think it's illustrative of a trend line that we have seen that the media, I think, reluctantly is being forced to report on, which is if you look at the greatest shift towards the GOP on immigration, it's actually what they call new Americans, or what they call immigrant citizens. These are individuals that were not born in the United States. They did it the right way. They came, they went through the entire process. They are now U.S. citizens, and they're the most upset among all the different groups and shifted most towards the GOP on the issue of how to handle illegal immigration. And it really, I think, it kind of goes back to what we all knew in grade school, which is we don't like people to cut in line, whether it's in the cafeteria or in our immigration process. And so I think that is illustrative of a larger point right now as well, that so much of the legacy media is missing what so many actual everyday Americans, including new Americans, are viewing this issue. They're actually siding with the president on this issue, and it's counterintuitive to what they've always thought and said and preached on their op-ed pages and in their different media outlets.
Well, one of the names I didn't hear you mention, I'm a little surprised, but George Soros. Are we seeing his fingerprints on any of this?
Yeah, most definitely. You definitely have Soros and other, not just Soros, but there are other left-wing billionaires that have funded that, and that was a big reason. As Richard noted, I started, helped co-found the group, the Protecting Americans Action Fund, that I was a chairman of, and I'm still on the board. But their job was to combat a lot of these social justice prosecutors that were popping up, where Soros will come in and drop a couple $100,000 right before the election, and and elect these individuals that view themselves as social workers instead of prosecutors. So that's something that I've been passionate about moving forward as well, is making sure you actually have prosecutors that actually realize they're prosecutors. They're not just there to try to have a catch and release program for criminals. But yeah, there is a lot of bad money that has flowed in. Obviously, listen, Soros is an American citizen. He can spend his dollars where he wants. It is undoubtedly true there has also been some foreign money funding some of these protests we've seen around the country on a variety of issues.
Well, I love the hypocrisy here. I thought the Democratic Party or the radical left hated billionaires. I thought the oligarchs were the enemy. But you just listed
secret,
3 billionaires.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, the dirty little secret in American politics today is they may claim they hate billionaires, but if you look at some of the largest funding, the number of billionaires funding leftist causes in America today compared to conservative or center-right causes, it's not even close. So many of the largest environmental movements are funded right now by left-wing billionaires. And don't understand it, can't get my arms quite around it, but that's the reality of the situation.
Jason, it's very much like the industrialists in Germany supporting Hitler because they thought they could control him. And that didn't work out too well for them.
Well, you know what? I have a very different theory. You know, G.K. Chesterton once noted that if you stop believing in God, you don't stop believing, you start believing in something else. And for a lot of these individuals, and I think this is where it gets dangerous in American society, they start their belief system is whatever their political movement is. And I don't think that's healthy. That actually leads directly, in my opinion, to it can lead to political violence, right? If you don't view that man is made in the image of their creator and by themselves they have self-worth, and instead I always say whenever ideas matter more than people, you can excuse a lot of atrocities. Whenever ideas are what matter more to you than actually individuals and people. And so that is a trend line I've been concerned about. And I would argue that, listen, I do think the majority of the political violence in this country is on the left, but you can see what happened in Minnesota. It is on the right as well. And I think it's incumbent upon elected leaders always call people out on that, because political violence is the quickest way, in my opinion, to unravel our republic. And I have zero tolerance for it.
Jesse, your turn with the Attorney General.
Mr. Attorney General, it's a pleasure to be with you. And before I ask you a question, we share a kindred spirit and ethnicity. I'm Cuban as well as you are, and my father was Cuban as your mom was Cuban, and my mother was Puerto Rican. So that makes me a Cuban Rican here in America.
So we were just commenting before that there are 2 Jews and 2 Cubans on the show.
That's exactly right.
I love that. Okay. I love that. That's fantastic.
It's the official Juban show.
Yeah, exactly. But because we're Cubans, we outnumber you guys. Anyway, before I get to my question about the Minnesota and its shooting there, I do want to touch upon something that you did in your career on one of your campaign promises, and because it affects us here in New York. You kept your promise to Virginians to investigate the 2020 parole board that broke the law and jeopardized the public safety by releasing violent and repeat offenders with early sentences. We're seeing that now here in the state of New York with our less woke attorney general, governor, and legislature in this one-party rule. Can you please maybe share with our listeners how you've made Virginia safe by taking on the parole board for their acts of 2020?
Well, when I took office, the Virginia murder rate was at a 20-year high, and our addiction death rate was at a 30-year high. And specifically on the parole board, it became an issue in Virginia. We had a guy by the name of David Simpkins who'd been arrested of not 1, not 2, not 12, not 24, but 56 prior felony convictions. Parole board lets him out, and within a year he commits another armed robbery of an innocent Virginian. And so Virginia started getting tired of it. And the governor did issue an executive order for me to investigate what the previous Democratic governor had done. And it was actually on the books in Virginia. You couldn't release these people without notifying the victims and allowing them to have their voice heard. They were ignoring it. So we found that they had indeed ignored the law. And so, but as far as lowering the crime rate, listen, we're having a 20-year high in our murder rate to Virginia. We did something really novel. We went after repeat violent offenders. It's pretty consistent around the country, but roughly 5% of felons commit over 50% of the violent felonies. If you want to lower gun violence, if you want to lower your murder rate, you go after those small subset of repeat violent offenders. That is exactly what we did. We launched something called Operation Ceasefire in our 13 most violent cities in Virginia, and we saw a drop in the murder rate of 66%. It's not rocket science. We know other leaders have done it, and others. Rudy Giuliani did it when he was mayor, and others have done it. If you want to lower violence, you have to go after the repeat violent offenders. When you decide to act like social workers and do a catch and release program, that's when you have these repeat offenders that over and over again commit so much of the crime. And I love to say, Jesse, that there is not a single social justice reform that we argue and debate now today in America that the left pushes that was not previously tried in the 1970s that led to disastrous results. Abolition of parole, getting rid of mandatory minimums, cashless bail. That was all tried in the 70s, all considered new and innovative, and it led to a crime explosion. We got away from it, and they say the only thing you learn from history is no one learns from history. And so we learn from history in Virginia. We decided to go after these repeat offenders, and numbers speak for themselves. Let's hope New York gets some sanity next year in their governor's race and get somebody common sense in there to bring that back.
First, we're worrying about the mayor's race here. Oh, my God.
Right. Oh, that's right.
Well,
is there going to be a socialist mayor in New York?
If only we were a socialist. The guy is an outright communist.
No, he's worse than that. He's a trust fund baby. His mother is a billionaire who makes movies. His father is an acknowledged anti-Semite, anti-Israel professor.
Wow.
And the apple doesn't fall. And the apple doesn't fall far.
And he's
from
running.
the tree.
He's running on a platform, Jason, of promising everything. Free this, free that, free bus rides, free subways, free groceries,
free Palestine,
free Palestine.
He
Don't raise rents.
Oh, he is.
Right.
Well,
Worse than de Blasio.
That's his hero.
I didn't think I was.
That's his hero.
Well, he said that
Wow.
he said de Blasio is his favorite mayor, and the New York Times shockingly came out and said that he was even too dangerous from New York, because he wanted to be like de Blasio. But the New York Times forgot that they had endorsed de Blasio. So I guess
just imagine how bad you got to be to get that from the Times.
Inconvenient fact.
An inconvenient fact that they seem to overlook here in New York, gentlemen, is this. That when you overtax people, when you overregulate people, when you don't give them law and order and public safety, when you don't take care of the quality of life, when you don't have a good educational system, when you try to micromanage everything in their private lives and telling them they can't have a gas stove or a gas lawnmower or whatever, people get tired of it and they flee. So over 400,000 people have fled New York and they're going elsewhere. What's your experience in Virginia?
Well, we've seen it right there across the waterway in Maryland. You had Governor Larry Hogan left them with a budget surplus and tax cuts. He left in 2022. Maryland now has exploded their deficit. They are now the third highest tax state in the country after California and sadly New York. So you're exactly right. And this is one thing I always love to put out to my liberal friends. The states that have the highest levels of income inequality are deep blue states, because we all know the job creation and wealth comes from the small business entrepreneur. 2/3 of all jobs in America created by the small business entrepreneur. They're the first one to get there in the morning, the last to leave at night. Who's the least able to afford an environment that has too much taxes and too much regulations? It's the little guy. The big corporations can hire the best lawyers, the best accountants. It's just the cost of doing business. It's the startups that cannot survive. So you've destroyed the middle class, the entrepreneur class. And what happens is whether they're in New York or California, they leave and they go to other states like Texas or Florida. And indeed, CNBC named Virginia as the best state in the country to do business. And that's kind of the great irony is it is leftist politicians that always ask voters, only judge me by my intentions. Never judge me by the results. They may be well-intentioned, but the results have always been they've created an environment that destroys the entrepreneurial class, the middle class. And so now you have the haves and the have-nots. You have the very income inequality that you claim you want to eradicate with your own policies that have created it.
And Jason, I want to ask you this. You're now running for re-election for your second term as Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Virginia. And for people who want to support you because of your brilliant career and your great ideas and your great leadership, how do they get in touch with you and how do they support your campaign?
Well, if they want to follow me on social media, they just go on X. It's a great way for you to stay in touch. If they want to go in and support my campaign for re-election, they can just go to jasonmiyares.com or jasonforvirginia.com, or they could just Google my last name. I know Jesse probably knows how to spell it, but the I is pronounced like an E in Spanish, so the last name may be Miyares, but it's Miyares.
Yeah, but I've been pronouncing it correctly all these years, Jason. Let the record show.
Well, don't worry. No worries on that. But appreciate everybody's friendship. We've done amazing things in Virginia, both obviously combating anti-Semitism on our college campuses, keeping Virginians safe, and really, I think, helping to be an example for the rest of the country.
Well, thank you very much, Attorney General Jason Miyares of the Commonwealth of Virginia. On behalf of Chairman Garcia, Eric Levine, and myself, it's been an honor and privilege having you on the show. We wish you every good wish in your re-election campaign and your future career. We look forward to having you back on the show someday soon.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks again.
Thank you. Be on the trail ahead. God bless you guys. Thank you. Bye-bye. God bless.
Thank you. We'll be right back in but a few moments with the final segment of this week's Let the Record Show.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
What's worse than an ad interrupting your favorite music or podcast? That uninspired coffee you've been drinking while working, which is why Flavia is elevating your everyday coffee experience. Now you can enjoy cafe-quality beverages like coffee, tea, frothy lattes, and creamy hot chocolate made right in your home office, actual office, or wherever you want to upgrade your mug with bold, delicious flavors. Visit Flavia.com to shop the collection of machines and beverages now.
In golf, precision is everything, on and off the course. PGA of America chose advanced 5G solutions from T-Mobile for Business for smooth operations and seamless transactions. Together, we enhance ticketing and concessions for better fan experiences from gate to green. This is pro-level efficiency. This is PGA of America with T-Mobile for Business. Take your business further at T-Mobile.com/now.
I already love same-day delivery with Shipt, but it's so much better since I signed up for Target's Circle 360. Why? Because I no longer pay price markups from the majority of stores through Shipt. Only a handful of alcohol retailers and items don't count. That means no markups on groceries, pet food, even home goods and makeup. So to recap, I have more time to catch up on life while someone shops for me, and I spend less. It's a win-win. Order now at shipt.com/360. Terms apply.
Home means something different to everyone. But with Rocket Mortgage, home can mean even more. It can mean a college education, taming your high-interest debt, even a renovation. We've made it easier than ever to use your home equity. That home you worked so hard for, now it can work hard for you. Call 800-4ROCKET or visit rocket.com to find out more.
Rocket Mortgage, LLC, licensed in all 50 states, and MLSConsumerAccess.org, number 3030.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
Entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Jesse is a vice chair of the New York State Republican Party, as well as being the chair of the Suffolk County Republican Party. With us is our esteemed colleague and co-host, Eric Levine, a noted commentator, essayist, and attorney. And I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. We just had with us for a second segment of the show Attorney General Jason Miyares of the Commonwealth of Virginia, a great leader, a great lawyer, somebody who fights every day for public safety and sets an example for the whole country about what effective leadership is for an effective governance and protection of our citizenry. So, gentlemen, in contrast to somebody of the integrity and the ability of Jason Miyares, you have this character running for mayor of the city of New York. Now, what are his credentials? He's been in the state legislature, state assembly for 3 years. He's never run anything. He's a trust fund baby. His mother is a billionaire. She makes movies for a living. The father's a professor. The mother and the father are both rabid anti-Semites and anti-Zionists against the state and the existence of Israel. pro-Hamas sympathizers. He was one of the organizers of the group in college campuses that led to the riots and the demonstrations and the
Students
violence.
for the Justice in Palestine.
Right, at Columbia University. And this is the man, and he's a boy, he's not even a man, and I'm old enough to say he's merely a boy. This is the boy who wants to lead the greatest city in the United States and perhaps the world, New York City. Now, New York City, as I've said many times, you take for granted its continued success and viability. We should never take that for granted. It's bottomed on an economic base, a cultural base, a business base, a job base, a tax base, a revenue base. It's the leader of the economy in the United States of America. Makes us a powerhouse in the world. If New York goes under, and New York City goes under, New York State will go under, the entire East Coast region will go under, and the United States is in great jeopardy. So we're really talking about the future of America when we talk about this race. So there's already been, Jesse can talk about this, there's already been early voting and people are putting in their absentee ballots. And next Tuesday, you're going to have an election, and in that primary election, you have something called ranked choice voting, which is a consumer fraud. It's a device engineered and created by the left to try to exclude out moderates. And what they're doing is they're trying to get people to vote cross-endorsements, but all the cross-endorsements are on the left wing, the socialists, the anti-Semites, and the anti-Zionists. That's what you have going on. So the future of New York City is at stake. And why do I say that? Because Eric Adams is not running in the primary, so he's only going to be in November election. So the only viable candidate against this Islamist supporter, this socialist,
he's a communist Jew hater.
Let's be subtle, right? So what do we got? The only choice you have is against Andrew Cuomo. Now, Andrew Cuomo has his shortcomings, he has his weaknesses, but he also has his virtues, he has the experience. He's the last best hope to stop this character from winning the Democratic nomination. Any other vote for any other candidate will lead to the possibility that this rabid anti-Semite, the socialist, will win the Democratic nomination. Now let's go fast forward, gentlemen, to November. November, there will be 5 candidates on the ballot. 5 candidates. There's no runoff. There's no ranked choice voting. Whoever has a plurality will win. The base of the socialist movement and the Working Families Party is given a nomination, even if he doesn't have the Democratic nomination, is significant enough that they could push for a plurality win. And then what happens to New York City, to New York State, the region, and the country? Eric.
Yeah, I mean, his most recent statement, talking about Mondani, was to globalize the Intifada. Why we're globalized? Why we care about New York? Why New York City mayor candidate has a foreign policy? I don't know. I guess traditionally they do, but you would think that calling for the extermination of the Jews would not be a particularly good platform in a city that has the largest population of Jews outside of Israel. But that seems to be where he is. You know, as we mentioned before on the show with our interview with Attorney General Miyares, the New York Times has come out with an editorial saying that Mondani is not prepared and is dangerous for New York. The New York Times. And one of the reasons they gave was because Mondani claims that he sees de Blasio as the best mayor in his lifetime. And then the New York Times, said, well, obviously de Blasio was a disaster, without mentioning that they were the ones who that had endorsed him when he was running. You can't make this stuff up. But just to tell you how dire this situation is, Andrew Cuomo is probably responsible for more deaths from COVID of anyone in the world after the Chinese Communist Party. And yet, he's the best candidate for mayor in the Democratic primary. He is the one, let's keep in mind and remember that he's the one who signed the no cash bail legislation, the criminal reform law. He signed that. It's his responsibility. His name is on it. And yet, he's the best candidate for mayor in the Democratic primary.
Do we have a choice?
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, it's all relative. Who's worse? And there's no question that Cuomo's the best. So then what do we do? So hopefully Cuomo wins the Democratic primary, but if he doesn't, Richard, to your point, there'll be 5 people in the race. Mamdani will be running in the progressive lane. He will coalesce the progressive vote in New York, which is not insubstantial. And then Cuomo, Adams, Sliwa, and remind me who the 5th guy is?
Jim Walden.
Jim Walden.
Lovely guy.
I'm sure
has as much chance of winning as I do, and I'm not running.
I'm sure he's a fabulous human being, but he has no shot at running. So those 4 will divide up the remaining portion of the pie, the voters, and Mamdani could very likely win. Now, hopefully Cuomo gets the Democratic nomination, and if he does, then Mamdani will just be on the Family Workers Party, whatever the name is.
Working Families Party.
Whatever the name of that communist socialist party is, he'll be on that. He'll get some votes, but he won't win. So I think it's important for people to keep in mind. First, get Cuomo to win the primary, to marginalize Mamdani. But if Mamdani wins, I've said it before on the show, it may not be the most popular thing for Republicans to hear, but I believe that the Republicans should be demanding that Curtis Sliwa should drop out of the race. He has no chance of winning. He can just be a spoiler. He can just take 15, 20, maybe even 25% of the vote. But that's just not going to be enough to win, but it will deprive Eric Adams of the chance to win. Adams is the only alternative in that race if Mamdani wins the Democratic primary. So there's a role here, I think, for Republicans. Obviously, I can understand you want to wait and see what happens. And I'm a proud Republican. I'm a huge Republican fundraiser. I want Republicans to govern the House, the White House, the Senate, and have all the governorships across the country. But in this circumstance, there's some things more important than party. The survival of the city is more important than party. Fighting anti-Semitism is more important than party. Saving capitalism in New York is more important than party. The safety of New Yorkers is more important than party. So I would advocate for people voting in the Democratic primary, go out and vote for Andrew Cuomo. And should Mamdani win the Democratic primary, people should just skip over Sliwa and go right to Adams because he's the only viable alternative.
Jesse, you're the political pro in this show.
Well,
what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts? I know it puts you in a box because you are a Republican vice chair.
Well, no. First of all, I have to look at the rules in New York City to see. Because they're always exempted by numerous election laws. The 5 boroughs of New York are exempted by election law rules that come down from the state of New York. I don't know if it's possible for Curtis Sliwa to come off the ballot after primary day.
You have 3 ways to do it. He can die. I'm not asking Curtis to die.
We don't want that. We don't want that.
He can get a judgeship. He can get a judgeship, but he's not eligible to be a judge. Or he can move. Or he can just. He doesn't have to come off the ballot. He can just say, "I've decided to throw in my towel or to throw my weight behind Eric Adams." And I'm sure there would be a role for him in an Adams administration, as there should be.
I'm sure, and I think that those discussions are probably going on now. But what I want to go to is, how bad does a candidate have to be, like Mamdani, for the New York Times to go to the lengths it has to disavow him, because I believe the New York Times is an arm of the Democratic Party in the New York State, the state of New York, and the country.
It's an arm of the radical progressive left wing of the Democratic Party.
Actually, I was just going to correct myself, and you did it for me. Thank you, Counselor. But what I find interesting is that Democrat super PACs are running ads against Mamdani and assailing him for defunding the police. So here is the entity, the Democrats, the progressives, who gave us cashless bail and gave us the defund the police movement, and now they're using it against this individual. The fact that the city of New York has a choice right now in its Democratic Party of Andrew Cuomo, a failed governor who had to resign in disgrace, and a communist, Marxist, anti-Semite like Mamdani. I mean, that says all you need to hear about the politics and the people in power or have their hands on the power levers of the city of New York. As we move forward from here, again, you're right. There are 3 ways to get out of the race. I'm not sure if those are viable in this case for the Republicans, but I think we need to sit here and wait. There has been polling that's all over the place, and quite frankly, I believe that the Democratic apparatus, whether it's the progressives or whether it's the Democratic establishment in the city of New York, and I would never refer to Andrew Cuomo as a moderate. Even in this race, he has still been captured and became a captive of the Working Families Party and the progressive left for his own political survival, which ultimately came back to bite him. So that's what happens when you have no ideals. If you dance with the devil's going to strike you down and take your soul. And that's what this did here with Andrew Cuomo, though whether or not we will have a debate if he has a soul.
Thank you, Charlie Daniels.
Yeah, exactly. But honestly, I'm going to be interested because I don't know if anybody can actually tell us whether it's a Cuomo polling, the Mambani's polling, or even a public polling out there because of all the rank system that really just jiggers this whole system up. I mean, you don't need to come in first. You need to be the best second or third place person.
That's right.
In fact, if I'm not mistaken, Eric Adams had more second place votes and third place votes than he did in first place votes for him to be successful.
I think that's right.
Yeah, the whole thing is Eric Adams won 4 years ago by 7,000 votes ultimately, but on the first round he had 70,000 more. So the whole system, and I did a segment with John and Larry Mandoker, who's a great election lawyer and a good friend of Eric's and mine. Today.
He's in my law firm.
He's in Eric's law firm.
Oh, look at that.
That's a very incestuous little world we have here. And I consider the idea of ranked choice voting the great consumer fraud of our time. It's confusing. People have no idea what it is, and it needs to be extinguished. At a good system before, which is runoffs. You don't get 40%. The top 2 candidates have a runoff election. And by the way, there's a plurality wins in November, which makes everything so dangerous. Rich has just given us the sign. It's time to sign off for this week's Let the Record Show. We've had Jason Miyares, the Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Virginia, as our special guest. Speaking on behalf of Chairman Garcia of the Republican Party, our co-host Eric Levine, noted commentary and essayist. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. We hope you've enjoyed this week's show. We look forward to being back with you again next week on Let the Record Show. And, of course, God bless you, God bless your families, and God bless America. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Let the Record Show. You can hear Let the Record Show Sunday mornings at 6. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Ready to make a real impact every day? Join the Active Day Home Care team and help clients maintain their independence in the comfort of their own homes. Make a difference in someone's life as you provide essential daily assistance and protect their health and happiness. Earn up to $20 an hour and enjoy additional perks like optional daily pay, 401k, paid time off, ongoing educational training, and more. Join a team that values care, compassion, and your professional growth. Visit ActiveDay.com to apply.